like cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy DELRAY, Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor. Click on the share button as we're about to go live. Or should I say, now that we are live, come on, tune in. Tell a friend. Absolutely. Wait for a couple of more people to come up in here. We're going to talk about this. Your boy DELRAY Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter. Nathaniel, how you doing? Great to see you. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you. Yes, indeed. Thanks for all of the people that are watching, that may not have subscribed to the channel, but are watching. Appreciate that. Fatima is in the building. Good to see you, Fatima. You got 23 other people who are watching that are not actually in the chat, who would actually respectfully join the chat or subscribe to the channel. If not, that's okay too. We love all the people that come here and give us their time. But more importantly, you know, this new bombshell, a response from the prosecution involving the Tupac murder trial, my brother Tupac's murder trial, and basically they've pulled out the big evidence, and we hope that you know, the judge will look at the evidence, actually review the evidence, and look at the evidence for what it is, to be able to come to a conclusion in regards, because there's been so many things said in regards to the Tupac situation. 1 minute Keefe D saying that, hey, you know what, you know, Diddy, you know, did offer me millions of dollars, and then the next minute he's saying, you know, no, I lied about everything, you know, sending this mixed message, if you will, in regards to this situation. And so Diddy name, and we're not talking about anything, not talking about the Greg Kading interview, if you will, but we're talking about the interview that Keefe D gave to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Jeff Boyd, what's good up? Alex Lopez, Hang Time K, salute. Risley Warrior for the Info TV. Who was that? Avertis, a Catfire, what's good? Fatima, what's good? And so let's talk about it, man. We know Sean P. Diddy Combs, the new information that just popped out about him. We're gonna get into that a little bit later. It's funny how things reveal themselves over time. And you know, what they said that they had, they really didn't have, and whether they were being fair or not, you know, God will ultimately be the judge of that. You know, even in the Sean P. Diddy case, based on the fact that all of these tapes that everybody said that they saw, and all of these other things, well, we're going to get into that. But this in particular, you know, 47 times in the 2009 interview that Keefe D did with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, his name, Sean P. Diddy Combs' name, came up 47 times, if you will. And so
they said Tupac was untouchable, but behind the walls of Rikers Island, he was just a man, wounded, watching his back, and wondering who he could trust. He survived bullets, betrayal, and isolation behind bars. But what happened inside those walls has never been told until now. In the darkest corner of Rikers, he found betrayal and a brotherhood no one saw coming. These dudes smiled in my face, then flipped and tried to kill me, and I never saw it coming. They were Puff's security, Biggie's muscle, Henchman's people, and Tupac knew exactly who sent them. This is the side of Tupac Shakur the world never got to see, told by the man who lived it with him, not in the studio, but in a 6x9 cell. The rap battles, sex and drama with female guards, the tears, the silence after Jada Pinkett's visit, and the moment Tupac almost broke. Before Death Row, before All Eyes on Me, before Machiavelli, there was Rikers. Behind the Walls with Tupac Shakur, available now on Amazon. Get your copy. Learn the truth.
Tupac had badmouthed Sean P. Diddy Combs, we know, in regards to Pac doing Hit 'Em Up, which came out in June of 1996. For all of the people that were around at that time, and Tupac had said some damning things. Tupac was hurt for the fact that he had thought that Sean P. Diddy Combs had something to do with the shooting outside of Quad Studios. And Biggie wasn't being as of a friend as he had been in the past, based on the fact that Biggie was in the studio having a session. We come to find out later through the interview that I did with Tupac's father, Billy Garland, that Biggie did come by the hospital and tried to check on Tupac, but at that time it was a little bit too late in regards to how Tupac felt. He was a little paranoid at that time, and rightfully so. He had just been shot. But more importantly, with this new information that the prosecution basically filed and in opposition to Keefe D's motion to basically throw out the case, if you will, right? I don't know what the judge will do in this case. They have a judge. She seems to be pretty fair and reasonable. And like I said, she's been pretty willing to listen even to Keefe D's outbursts and rants in court, as we seen not too long ago, from that perspective. So, but in this new filing from the prosecution in opposition to Keefe D's motion, he filed for the case to be dismissed. But now the prosecution has filed back with 180 pages, 180 pages of evidence, which will take some time for the court to review and really do a fair analysis as to whether and to believe Keefe D or whether to believe the prosecution. Keefe D has made his case somewhat hard to believe based on the conflicting statements that he's made. But we do know prior to him being charged with the murder of Tupac, he wrote in his book and revealed that his book was a quote from Keefe D, nothing but the truth. And so with that being said, the prosecution is also using that evidence involving this situation. But the prosecution hit back with a 180-page filing where they claim the gangster has confessed to being involved in the murder of Tupac Shakur and on nearly every forum imaginable. That includes documentaries, that includes the Art of Dialogue, that includes Vlad TV, that includes in his book, that includes just all of the places that he's appeared. And more importantly than that, on this tape that they submitted as evidence to the court. So now the court, as well as the transcript, the live interview, the court has now received the transcript and the tape of Keefe D confessing to being involved and being the shot caller in the murder of Tupac Shakur as evidence in opposition to Keefe D's motion to dismiss the murder case. Now, I don't know, I really don't know, because they really didn't go into detail about the information that Keefe D may have provided in regards to that. But They sure as hell went into detail in regards to what evidence that the prosecution has basically supplied to in opposition of that motion. A full transcript of one of the confessions which Keefe D made during a secretly recorded interview with the Las Vegas police in 2009 was included in the latest court filing, right? And you know, police don't have to tell you whether they, you know, they recording you or not, you know, up to you to talk. But Keefe D, the reason I don't understand that, because Keefe D went and talked to the police after he had got what was a proffer deal from the United States Attorney's Office as well as the LAPD. He then went, and that was in 2008. He then went to Las Vegas to talk to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, in which they did not offer him any kind of protection to speaking with them from that perspective. So now they have a full transcript of one of the confessions that Keefe D made during a secretly recorded interview with the Las Vegas police in 2009, which included which they included in the latest court filing in opposition to Keefe D's motions, revealing some of the bombshell allegations surrounding Tupac's September 1996 murder, right? Basically, in naming Diddy. Diddy, we know, is currently in federal custody in New York after his September indictment for the sex trafficking and racketeering and all of those things in regards to bringing and flying chicks in or flying dudes in or something like that. This is where that case has gone now. But Diddy had denied, he's denied numerous amount of times, but recently he denies the recent charges and has previously dismissed claims he orchestrated Tupac's murder as completely ridiculous and pure fiction. He has never been arrested, we know, over the death of Tupac, and Las Vegas cops have previously said he's not a suspect in the case. Now, so, but they're using Keefe D's own words to basically convict him. He did a lot of talking, you know, loose lip sync ships, if you will, from that perspective. And he did a lot of talking. And so now they're basically using Keefe D. Keefe D is his own worst nightmare as far as a witness. He is being a witness. He's actually being a witness against himself, if you will, right? But he said, yo, Diddy said, no, it's pure fiction, and so on and so forth. But the new court papers, this is new court papers now, the new court papers in the Tupac case, you know, explains how Diddy was a central discussion point in the previously unreleased police interview. So this police interview has never been heard before in the public, right? That the judge now has in her possession, and she's going to have to review that along with what Keefe D and them filed. Basically detailed how Diddy was a central figure in point in previously unreleased interview, raising questions about his role in the killing. Keefe D, basically, we know, pled not guilty to the murder charge, boasted on tape to Detective Long, and Detective Long worked with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Force, to Detective Long of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, how he was the boss. Keefe D said, I'm the boss, overseeing 3 other Southside Crips on the crime, but that Diddy allegedly played a role in the murder. When Long asked directly, and this is directly from the transcript, y'all. This is directly from the transcript. When Long asked directly, does he play a role in this thing, referring to Diddy, Keefe D replied, yeah, according to the transcript. So now, this is in 2009, way before, you know, Keefe D would be indicted. Now, why is Keefe D talking to the Las Vegas Police Department after being granted a proffer deal by the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Los Angeles Police Department? I don't know. He felt it in his duty to go talk to him. Why did he talk to him without any kind of deal or any kind of immunity or any kind of safeguards up prior to that beats me. This is the reality of the situation, and just being totally unbiased, right? In regards to reading the information and understanding it, right? So it says again, when Long asked directly, does he play a role in this thing, referring to Diddy, Keefe replied, yeah, according to the transcript. Keefe then goes in to claim Diddy's hatred of the West Coast record label Death Row, a rival at the time, Suge Knight, was so extreme, he instructed him, oh shit, I'll give you anything for that dude's head. And talking about Suge Knight at that particular time, right? Diddy, then known as Puffy, allegedly told Keefe D that the price on their head was motherfucking millions. This is in this interview, in this particular interview. And he also, Keefe D had reiterated that same statement to Greg Kading and the U.S. Attorney's Office a year before. He said the same thing. This is something new. The motherfucking millions in front of 45 people who were gathered in a room with them, according to the transcript. So Diddy is saying in front of a group of 45 people, according to Keefe D. Diddy, then known as Puffy, allegedly told Keefe that the price on their heads, meaning Tupac and Suge, was motherfucking millions in front of at least 45 people who were gathered in a room with them, according to the transcript, right? He added of Suge, who was driving the car when he and Tupac were gunned down, allegedly by Keefe's men, he didn't say no specific dollar amount, but he wanted the man's head though. He added that he was real scared of that guy, meaning Keefe D heard from Puffy. Puffy said to him that he was scared of Suge Knight at that particular time. I mean, like I said, I mean, back then, you know, Suge, you know, unfortunately had the reputation of the boogeyman. You understand what I'm saying? And for all of the rumors and things that were out there at that particular time, as well as other situations, you know, Death Row was moving. They were moving. You know, they had a force. They you know, it was serious. Like I said, I had been at parties and things like that, and I seen Suge walk in, and dudes, you would have thought that was real dudes, and not because they were scared. A lot of times, people just don't want, you know, and being smart. Let me move. Let me get up out of here. And then, you know, sometimes it could have been fear. You know what I mean? But I don't know what they were feeling per se, but I've seen, you know, guys who you would consider real dudes and real tough guys just vacate the premises. You know what I mean? Sometimes to your own best judgment, if you will, right? After Puffy told him that he was scared of Suge Knight, Puffy told Keefe D that he was scared of Suge Knight. Keefe then asked, what about, did Puff have any, Keefe was then asked by the investigator, what about, did Puff have any problems with Tupac, right? So now the investigator's asking him, did you know, Puffy have any problems with Tupac? And Keefe D replied about that, yeah, the record that came out told him he's a fucker and all that shit. Keefe replied, you know what I mean? That Tupac was a fucker for putting out Hit 'Em Up, if you will. And then it goes into Keefe D basically saying, you know, or Puffy actually saying, you know, fuck that dude, mean talking about Tupac. And everybody knows Hit 'Em Up was released in June 1996. But you know the crazy part about that, like I said, in all fairness, you know, Tupac was hurt. He was hurt. You know, confused, and like I said, more importantly, disappointed at the fact that when Jay-Z and Biggie did the song Brooklyn's Finest, you know, Biggie had said something in regards to Faith having kids and having twins, and they probably be Tupac's, right? And all of those things. So understandably so, in around that time, those two records were closely intertwined together, right? You know what I mean? And so that was the reason why most people who don't really know and understand, that was partially the reason why Tupac did Hit 'Em Up. right? Because when Biggie said, if Faith have twins, she probably have two Pacs. Get it? Two Pacs. Now, with that being said and understood, you got to understand, Tupac then thinking, he starts off, you know, first off, you know, fuck your bitch and they click you claim. So that was the reason partially why he came the way he came with that. Most people don't really understand. And like I said, back then, most people didn't really understand that Tupac had a situation with Faith if they didn't really know and wasn't close to the situation. Like I told people, and I tell you again, I was there the night that Tupac had met Faith Evans at the Hollywood Athletic Club. And so I knew for a fact that it was true. You know what I mean? You know, and you can check on my channel and see the videos that I did on that, as well as on the Art of Dialogue. But more importantly, with that being said and understood, that's what kind of, you know, that friction really started from that perspective, other than Tupac being shot at Quad. You know what I mean? It kind of carried over when he ran into Faith. They had their 1-2. It got back to Biggie the same night. And it was a thing from there. Faith had talked about how Biggie was mad, got fight, you know, had a fight with her. She locked herself in the bathroom and all of those things, right? She did mix a little lie with a little truth. You know what I mean? I'm not going to front on that, but that was basically the gist of what had happened. And so when Tupac, you know, amongst other things, you know, got wind of the Brooklyn's Finest, then he was like, oh, and see, that was the reason when Tupac did the Machiavelli album, he came out and he was talking about Jay-Z and Hawaiian Sophie fame and all of those things. That was the reason why, you know what I mean, that he had came out with that from that perspective. So now, you know, in the transcript, in the court transcript, which has now been entered into the evidence in the murder trial of Keefe D versus the people of Las Vegas, Nevada, Keefe D said that Diddy's view on Tupac was basically like, yo, fuck that dude. You know what I mean? And so now Keefe D's lawyer is trying to, Keefe D's lawyer is basing his defense on one or two things, whether he can get Suge Knight to come testify, which I don't think Suge will ever do from that perspective. But they're basically saying that, you know, trying to get Suge Knight to testify, right? On Keefe D, on Keefe D's behalf, if you will, right? It's a long shot. You know what I mean? You know, so at all of these years, the 28, I think was almost 30 years that people have been waiting for the justice to come down for Tupac, right? You know, Keefe D had described in great detail in his memoir, The Compton Street Legend, what went down the night Pac was shot. You know, extracts from, you know, basically, you know, he basically said, hey, you know what? Tupac was fucking with the wrong people at that particular time. I would have to agree with that from that perspective as they saw it at the time. But you know, anybody know about, you know, how life goes, you know, for every action, there's an opposite and sometimes equal reaction, but not always equal. And so one has to be careful about the things that they do. And I think Tupac overstepped his bounds, as well as his father, who I interviewed on the Art of Dialogue, also said that when I asked him that question. Do he think that Tupac was wrong for running up on Orlando Anderson at the MGM? And Mr. Billy Garland said yes. To, you know, and, you know, explain why. You can check that interview out over on the Art of Dialogue. And so understanding all of this, right? You know, Keefe D also said that when they were standing on the corner, when the ambulance rode by, right? You know, Keefe repeated claims multiple times about being involved with the murder on YouTube channels, documentaries, and even tape confessions to the police, as we know, when he believed he could not be prosecuted. Because so Keefe D thought he had immunity. He thought that what he got from the United States Attorney in Los Angeles Police Department, he thought gave him immunity. Now, what lawyer he had at that particular time beats the hell out of me, because you're supposed to know, you know, your position, where you are, what you're doing, and the things that you can and can't say. The information in the proffer agreement was only supposed to be mentioned in the proffer agreement. He wasn't supposed to go anywhere else and talk about that. That was the condition, or that's usually the condition of a proffer agreement, if you will. You know, and they basically say, hey, what's said here only be said here. But Keefe chose to what? After Greg Kading came out with Murder Rap, Keefe D was like, the hell with that. They making money off of it. Let me make some money off of it. And so he then wrote the book, basically, and in turn, incriminating himself and in turn violating the stipulations and conditions of the proffer agreement, right? Keefe D on one account basically you know, came across as remorseless, if you will. And like I said, all of these things are going to be presented in the court. You know, Keefe D appeared completely remorseless, telling detectives, we didn't give a fuck. The ambulance for Tupac was parked right here next to us. That shit was funny as a motherfucker. And that's quoting what Keefe D said. All of this information about what he said is in front of the judge. You know what I mean? And now, you know, Keefe D is going to have to deal with the words that he said. You know, it's like, it's tantamount to somebody having a phone conversation or their phone being tapped and listening to the conversation that they're having. Keefe D phone didn't need to be tapped. He was the actual tap and speaking a little bit too much, writing the book, doing the interviews, then getting caught and being charged for the murder, basically saying, hey, you know what? I did it for money and fame. You know, not really gangster-like, because Keefe D's always basically quoted himself as being a gangster, if you will, right? From that perspective. And Keefe D's lawyer, Carl Arnold, said basically this was another defense that they had offered up, basically said that Keefe D wasn't even in Las Vegas on the night of the shooting. Now, I don't know how that works. If you got your client basically testifying that he was in the car, he had rode to Club 662, he had rode in the van, they were looking for Tupac, we was looking for him, then we spotted him, and all of this, these other things, and then also basically saying we didn't give a fuck, the ambulance for Tupac, when Tupac was in the ambulance, was parked right next to us. That shit was funny as a motherfucker. How Tupac, Keefe D's lawyer is now going to say as a defense that, well, Carl Arnold basically saying he wasn't even in Las Vegas of the night of the shooting. And I understand why he would say that, because, you know, that would leave the prosecution to have to prove place Keefe D in Las Vegas. It's not enough just to say that he wasn't there and use his words, but somehow placing him in Las Vegas at that particular time. Keefe D's lawyer basically says he remains convinced he will see his client walk free, and their secret weapon would be Suge Knight. So Keefe D's lawyer saying the secret weapon to Keefe D walking free is Suge Knight himself, because Suge Knight is one of the only other surviving people, other than being in the Cadillac. Keefe D confessed that he was in the Cadillac, and Suge, we know for a fact, was driving the BMW, as there was a picture taken right before the shooting happened. From that perspective, like I said, you know, and so with that being said, they're trying to rely on Suge Knight somehow coming to court and testifying. I don't really see that happening. Suge has already basically said that he's not a snitch. He's not a rat. He doesn't participate in activity like that. He's a man's man and shall be noted for that. And that's how he want to stand on what he's standing on at this particular time, right? Now, Keefe D, once again, in this interview involving the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, Keefe then recalls how he was delighted after seeing his nephew, Orlando Anderson, fire at Suge and Tupac off the Las Vegas Strip on September 13th, 1996, saying, we was like, damn, we can get paid now. This is what Keefe D told the investigators, y'all. Keefe D told this to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. They have it on tape and on transcript. I'll read that one more time, y'all. Listen, Keefe D then recalls how he was delighted after seeing his nephew, Orlando Anderson, fire at Tupac and Suge off the Las Vegas Strip on September 13, 1996, saying, quote, we was like, damn, now we can get paid. I mean, we can get paid now, meaning from Sean P. Diddy Combs, as he has implicated Sean P. Diddy Combs in this situation, right? He then clarifies the source of that alleged payday was Diddy. Listen, these are actual quotes, y'all. These are actual quotes. When you said paid, they asked him, this is the question. When you say paid, paid by Puffy, right? The detective asks Keefe D, to which Keefe D says, yeah, we was talking about getting paid from Puffy, from doing the for doing the shooting on Tupac and Suge. Keefe then alleges Diddy did not pay him directly. He didn't pay him directly, which another thing is, like I said, he said instead a mutual acquaintance named Eric Zip Martin, who had supplied Keefe's crew with the murder weapon, made the payment. According to the court filing, Keefe claimed the word on the streets through gang circles was that Zip kept the alleged $1 million bounty for himself rather than hand it over, adding on the tape that Zip got paid, but Puffy at some point, right? So Keefe D saying Zip got paid from Puffy at some point, but Zip didn't give him the money or pay Keefe D. Yeah, but they're basically saying the Las Vegas prosecutors are basically saying the defendant has confessed to being involved in Shakur's murder in nearly every forum imaginable. Amazing, right? In nearly every form imaginable, right? And Keefe D goes into talking about how Sean P. Diddy Combs was scared at the time. Keefe D said he made several efforts to contact Diddy directly after he was released from a drug conviction from a prison sentence in 2002. I called Puff when I got out, Keefe said, but Diddy stayed silent. Sometime after everything went down, Keefe told the detective Long on the recording that he and Diddy met in the parking lot of the Hollywood House of Blues. Now, listen to this. This right here is new information. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is new information right here because I've never heard this before in regards to Keefe D saying after he got out of prison that him and Sean P. Diddy Combs, he said sometime after everything went down, Keefe told Detective Long on the recording that he and Diddy met in the parking lot of the House of Blues. Diddy came to the car, then he acted scared of us. Keefe said. He said Diddy came to the car, and he was scared. He was petrified. He was just like he was telling us to come meet him at the hotel room, the Hilton, and whoop whoop whoop. that sound like this is a quote, y'all. This is a quote. It said Keefe D said he was just like he was telling us to come to meet him at the hotel room, the Hilton, and whoop whoop whoop, right? For people who know what that means. Like I said, that's not for everybody. That's for people who really know in the chat, who know what I'm talking about when I say that. Then Keefe went on to say, so he asked us, did we have some weed? He said in the parking lot where they met up at the House of Blues, Keefe D said Puff asked him if we had some weed and stuff, but that motherfucker, he never took his eyes off us, though at all. You know what I mean? Like, he was kind of scared. I mean, if what's true, and Puffy had knowledge that they had something to do with, shooting Tupac and Suge, then, Puffy was like, well, they might try to do something to me, probably were his thoughts at that particular time. Keefe D added, he didn't say nothing. He just backed up. He was just in the window, just talking to me, leaning over to the car, talking to him, so on and so forth. And he basically said he just backed up, and there was girls all over him. He steady watching the car. Girls was all over him, but he steady watching the car. Keefe D said he wasn't paying no attention to none of them girls. Was tripping with her like this motherfucker scared. And that's what Keefe D and them, he said his observation of Sean P. Diddy Combs was when he came over to the car asking him, yo, you got some weed or whatever, and so on and so forth, and basically saying, hey, you know what? There were girls all around him, but Sean P. Diddy Combs wasn't worrying about the girls. He worried more about, watching Keefe D, watching their moves. And Keefe D made the observation that Sean P. Diddy Combs was basically said this motherfucker was scared, if you will. And so yeah, it's 143 pages the transcript is. That's a lot of talking, man. That's a lot of talking. That's a lot of talking. And we don't know all of the other details. This is just some of the details in particular. But I do know one of the other details in which I had found out a while ago. And that detail in particular is when Keefe D basically said that he hid the gun. Keefe D told the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department in this same interview that is 143 pages long. They asked him, well, what happened to the gun after y'all did it? And he basically said that he hid the gun. So when people ask, or I guess when the defense tries to use that as they don't have a murder weapon from that perspective, you can't charge, you don't have a murder weapon. They have Keefe D confessing in this 143 page transcript that he basically hid the gun, right? It's a bombshell, man. It's a bombshell. And we got less than 90 days before the murder trial involving Tupac Shakur is to start. It's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be interesting. Keefe D, thought that he had immunity without immunity bill. But however, Keefe D's lawyer, Carl Arnold, right? Carl Arnold has said his client lied. Once again, see, we go back to that again. Carl Arnold's basically saying that, hey, Keefe D lied about, his and Diddy's involvement in the crime for fame and money. Now, I don't know if they're going to try to assess what Keefe D made, doing all of these interviews and where he talked about his book, where he talked on the Art of Dialogue, on Vlad for the documentaries, how much he was paid, and all of those things. See, because that's important based on to say, well, if he lied, for money and fame, then what was that number? You understand what I'm saying? So once again, and the key thing about this, I guess what we could say in everything, and Keefe that have done a lot of talking, is, will he ultimately take the stand? Will he ultimately take the stand in his own defense, basically to say some of the things that he said in recent times is, I lied for money and fame. I lied to the U.S. Attorney's Office. I lied to the LAPD. I lied to Greg Kading. I lied to all of these people just so I wouldn't go to prison. I cooperated and, confessed to all of this other stuff and gave y'all evidence about these drug deals and all of this other stuff so that I wouldn't go to prison. So that's going to be the most interesting part, because as the prosecutors have now basically spoken, Keefe D life is on the line. He will do life in prison. They're basically saying that he will die in a prison cell based on his own confessions. Let's be clear. Keefe D was given a get out of jail free card, man, for his own admission in participating in one of the most highest profile murders that you can ever think of. But instead of doing what the law would say and respecting his right to remain silent, Keefe D chose to write a book. Keefe D chose to do interviews. Keefe D chose to double and triple down on his involvement in the murder of Tupac Shakur, which has landed Keefe D in the Las Vegas Metropolitan Detention Center, waiting on the charge of murder with gang enhancements in the murder of Tupac Shakur. I've never heard of any situation like this in my life in regards to any kind of criminal case, especially one as high profile as this one. You got to really, sit back and really, truly, honestly digest that for what that is, right? So the trial coming up in March. prosecutors recently made an unusual declaration about whether Diddy or Knight could testify as witnesses, right? Both Suge Knight and Sean P. Diddy Combs are not unavailable, although they do face their own legal problems, the prosecutor said, seemingly leaving the open door to having them both testify if they felt like they want to. Diddy, I don't think will happen. Suge, I really, truly, honestly don't think that'll happen. With like I said, once again, Suge had said a few things in regards to what he saw in Keith Edie's book. He basically, I think this was probably a typographical error. He said that he was the only one living person that was left alive involved with that situation. I guess he had forgot about Suge at that particular time, when he said that. The judge, Carly Kearney, she seemed, like I say once again, she seems like a pretty thorough judge, if you will. I don't know her, but Judge Carly Kearney will listen to both sides' arguments and rule on whether Keefe's trial will progress at a Las Vegas district court hearing on Tuesday. The Sun has reached out to lawyers and representatives, right, for Diddy's comment. So they've been reached out to. I don't think Diddy's talking right now. I mean, I don't know how they reached out to him, through a letter in prison or what have you. But yeah, Diddy's fighting his own fight. We know that Suge is doing 20 some odd years for his situation. And so, like I said, we're gonna see what happens with this, man. But it doesn't look good for Keefe D at this particular point. And like I said, we got less than 90 days. The motion to dismiss the case, based on what I understand it to be, based on what we just discussed. So tell me, guys, what you guys think. You say, Stephen Knight, I bet if they brought back the death penalty, she would tell the truth. Facts. Roman says, before many times, So what y'all think? Y'all think the chat? Do y'all think Keefe D got a chance? Or is he done? As I always ask. I ask you guys, like I said once again, from the information that's been gathered and from the information that we know of from what the court said that they had. Jovan say done. DM. No more secret. The truth is out. Eric Barton, what did you say? Eric Barton said, you said he got a chance, Eric Barton? Okay. Like I said, everybody has a different opinion. Stephen Knight, you can trust anything. You can't trust anything he says. Yeah, at this particular point, I would have to agree. I mean, not agree that we can trust anything that says, but the conflicting statements that he's made, and as much as he's talked, Eric Gonzalez say he think that he's cooked. He said the world loves Tupac. Dude is cooked. Damn, he said damn like he do. You say he just as bad as Suge. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I won't compare. Like I said, I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I won't say he as bad as Suge. Like I said, once again, in the sense of what we know, Suge has been quiet. Suge hasn't really said anything in regards to the murder of Tupac Shakur, whether he did know who did it or not. He did say the one thing about that it wasn't Keefe D from that perspective. But I don't know if that is admissible. He said, what did he say? Oh no, he said, I'm sorry. He said it wasn't Orlando. My bad. He said it wasn't Orlando. And so that right there is, I would say that would be irregardless of the fact that Keefe D placed themselves in the car. So who did it as up to this point? Really, I mean, I don't think that would matter. Keefe D has already basically said that his nephew did it. So I didn't understand that part either. I didn't understand why he would, implicate his nephew, being a loving and caring uncle I don't know why he would implicate his nephew, but he did. And so that's what that is. Yeah, like I said, in this particular, that absolutely, Ramon Bravo. Yeah, in this particular case, yeah, Suge was almost a victim. I mean, he was a victim for what they said he got grazed or something like that. And so yeah, he was. So yeah, it's kind of crazy, man. Guilty by association. Straight up, Jovan said. Yeah, Suge can help Keefy D, but Keefy D ain't got $1 billion. You know what I mean? And so at this particular point, and like I said, I don't money excluded. Um, I don't think Suge would do that. I think because if he did do that, it would then paint a whole different picture as we know it. We know about the money being given to Orlando Anderson in regards to him coming to testify on Suge's behalf in court, basically saying that Suge didn't kick him on that night at the MGM when the fight had happened, right? We know about that. I can understand that aspect from, I guess Suge felt like, he was fighting for his freedom at that particular time, and Tupac was gone, So it's like, there was nothing he could really do. But me personally, I can't see that. I couldn't see that. I just would have to fight that one out myself. It wouldn't be me paying nobody. If I was in a situation like that, there's no way, I could sit next to Tupac and see him, get shot up like that and then go pay somebody that was alleged to be involved in that under any kind of circumstances. I would just have to ask the judge for leniency, and that I made a mistake and I was involved in something that I wasn't supposed to be in the defense of my artist. And all of that was on tape, you know what I mean? And even if it wasn't that, you got to suck that one up because he still got what I think 9 years, 7 years for violation. So he still got violated no matter. And he, and what they say paying Orlando, he still got violated. So, everybody does different things for different reasons. You know what I mean? And I think, Suge was man enough to do what he needed to do or what he thought he should do at that time. And you got to respect him for that or not respect him for that. But like I said, me personally, I wouldn't have done anything like that. You know what I mean? But the Cadillac, that Cadillac was a rental car from that perspective. So that was owned by the rental car. I don't know where the Cadillac is. Yeah, like I said, that's what Suge said. Suge said that Orlando wasn't the shooter. Yeah, Eric Gonzalez said that. I got it, babe. Eric Gonzalez said that. He said the murder and death row came from greed and ignorance. Man, like I said, when you think back on that situation, and you think Suge was like 32, 34, Tupac was 25. They had millions of dollars. I don't think, they really didn't know what to do. You know what I mean? And being able to, Tupac, we come to understand, and all of the ramblings and the bail stuff that he really wasn't signed to death row. I kind of question what Tupac really understood about his situation. Now, I think he did understand about his situation, but I think Tupac thought because he was so talented that he was gonna breeze through, give them couple of albums. That's why Tupac said he was gonna leave Death Row. People, the funny part about the Tupac leaving Death Row thing, right? People act like if you leave a situation, this is how some people really think about the situations that they doing at this particular time. When Tupac said, "Yo, I'm about to leave Death Row," they act like Tupac had to stay. They act like he had to be forever, burdened down with Death Row. And that simply wasn't the case. He understood his situation. He was about to leave. Quincy Jones, in fact, had $80 million deal on the table, multimedia deal on the table with Warner Brothers. It wasn't no secret. They were giving those kind of deals away at that particular time. They also gave a deal like that to the rock group REM in and around that same time. So that wasn't no secret. After doing 5 million records in 4 months, it was no secret that Tupac Shakur was worth that kind of money, if not more. You know what I mean? They're giving way more money than that right now, but $80 million, and it was a multimedia for television, movies. We know Tupac was doing, albums. Tupac said he wanted to do books. He wanted to do all of that. And that was the company, I believe it was Euthanasia, in which his I would say godmother, if you want to call it that, Yasmin Fuller, was going to be in charge of, and she was helping spearhead that effort also. And she was the one that talked about that Tupac actually asked for the audit from Death Row right before his death. You know what I mean? Tupac wanted an audit. You know what I mean? So that's the reason why I question, did he really know? Like, he's asking for an audit. Was he asking for an audit from Death Row to go, or he believed that they were going to handle the business that they said they were going to handle in reference to that couple of page contract that he had signed? You see what I'm saying? Not really paying attention to the paperwork that he signed right before he got out of prison, which basically said that he was never going to be on death row. So therein lies that thing where, like I said, and David Kenner was supposed to be his a lawyer at that particular time, both the lawyer for Tupac and Suge and Death Row, which is a crazy conflict of interest. You know what I mean? And so with the conflict of interest being just ripe, for bias, if you will, the complicit bias, Tupac once again then fired David Kenner, as well as he firing Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. at that particular time also. So, I think Tupac was waking up to what he needed to really see. It's like, oh, this is crazy. And Yasmin always talked about how much she would try to convince and tell Tupac, hey, look, this is what this is. Mr. Ogletree, another attorney that Tupac had, who he was dealing with, also was helping him also on side of, with the legal cases in New York and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, like I said, once again, we're going to see what happens with this, man. Less than 90 days, man. Less than 90 days. The murder in the case of Tupac Shakur will begin in March. So, like I said, I can't wait, until it happens and to see if Tupac will ultimately get justice. I hope this judge, in his situation involving that, because as we remember, now when Tupac was in New York, remember the situation that happened in New York, we know that Tupac didn't do it, and Tupac had said that the judge, didn't never look him in his eye at the time that he was charged for the situation in New York involving the young girl. He said that, the judge never looked. When he spoke, he said, Your Honor, you never looked at me even once. He said, so he didn't really care what happened in regards to that. You can do what you will. He said, I'm not in your hands. I'm in God's hands. Right. And so Tupac was forever a soldier and being what he said he was. And even after being convicted, Tupac's lawyer immediately filed for a motion to be released on an appeal bond on that situation. And the judge denied it. The judge denied it. And like I said, once again, we can only speculate as to why the situation down in Atlanta with the off-duty police officers and things of that nature, like I said, but Tupac didn't know that they were police at the time. So once again, when one takes in the information and looks at it with an unbiased and truthfully, because see, like I said, karma's undefeated. Karma's undefeated, and death makes us all even. And Tupac was one of those people who wasn't afraid to die from that perspective. Like I said, he lived in his truth, good, bad, or indifferent. And I think that's what separated him from all of the other artists and all of the other artists who mentioned his name today. I think that's what separated Tupac from that situation. But we understand that when he tried to get an appeal, the judge said no. And then he had to go in front of, he had to appeal it. He had to appeal his situation, and he won the bail under the appeal, under certain criteria in being released on bail, which was a cash bail, which Atlantic Records as well as Interscope put up. on Tupac's behalf. And Tupac, most people didn't understand this. Tupac actually put his catalog up and his company up and his publishing up as collateral to pay back the bail that they put up. So Tupac was intricately involved in him getting out of jail. Most people didn't know that, and they credited it to Suge Knight and Death Row, when we found out later, understandably so, that was not true. So people really need to understand that it was Tupac Shakur who basically bailed himself out with the intellectual properties that he owned and controlled at that time. Remember, what was it? Not All Eyes on Me. Me Against the World had went #1 while Tupac was in prison, beating out Bruce Springsteen, if you will, for the #1 record at that particular time. And so, yeah, we're gonna see what happens, man. Yeah, absolutely. What we talking about? What we talking about? Like I said, so, I'm not going to keep you guys. Once again, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you tuning in. Your boy DELRAY. Yeah. Straight gang.